In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to solve problems involving fractions. Let's start with how to write a fraction in simplest form and look at an example. 18 over 24. The easiest way to solve this is to find the greatest common factor. In this case, the largest factor that we have in common between 18 and 24 is 6. 6 goes into 18 3 times. 6 times 3, 18. 6 goes into 24 4 times. 6 times 4, 24. I can cancel the 6's. Leaves 1, 1. 1 times 3, 3. 1 times 4, 4. There are no 3's in 4, no even 3's in 4. So this is in simplest form. If you can't figure the greatest common factor, then use prime factorization. Prime factorization is breaking a number down into its primes. The prime numbers are 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, and so forth. So let's look at the same example. If I didn't know that the greatest common factor was 6, I'd take 18 over 24. And I just look at it and know that since they're both even numbers, they're both divisible by 2. 18 is 9 times 2. 24 is 12 times 2. I can just cancel these 2's now. So that leaves me with 9 over 12. I can break this down further. I know 9 is 3 times 3, and 12 is 4 times 3. I can cancel these 3's now. And gives me the same answer, 3 over 4 in simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. 24 divided by 72. Well, both even numbers, both divisible by 2. 12 times 2, 24. 36 times 2, 72. Let's get rid of these 2's now. I know 12 goes into 36 3 times, so 12 times 3, 1. That just gives me 1 over 3 in simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. 60 divided by 192. I see 60 as a number with a 0 on the end. That means it's divisible by 10, so 6 times 10. 192 and even, divisible by 2. 192 is just 96 times 2. I'm going to break it down further. I have 6 times 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 96 breaks into 48 times 2 times 2. Let's get rid of these 2's now. That just equals 6 times 5. Let's break down 48. That's 24 times 2 times 2. 6 is 3 times 2 times 5 here. So we have 24 times 2 times 2. Let's get rid of these 2's. We have 3 times 5 over. Let's break 24 down into 8 times 3 times 2. And get rid of these 3's. That gives me 5 over 8 times 2, which is 16. So 5 16ths. There are no 5's in 16, no even 5's in 16. So that's in simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. 28 divided by 350. I see 28 an even number, divisible by 2. 14 times 2. 350, a number with a 0 on the end, so it's divisible by 10. 35 times 10. I'm going to have to break it down further. 14 is 7 times 2. So that's 7 times 2 times 2. 35 is 7 times 5. And 10 is 5 times 2. 2, 2, 7, 7. That leaves me with 2 over 25. There no 2 doesn't divide into 25 evenly. So that's in simplest form. If you're struggling with multiplication here, this is a good time to brush up. I did a full video on multiplication. I will put the link in the description. Let's look at adding and subtracting fractions. For that, we need a common denominator. If I take 3/12 plus 4/12, I have a common denominator of 12. That means the bottom number is 12. for both fractions. So I can add straight across the numerator. I can add straight across the top numbers. 4 plus 3, 7 over 12. That's in simplest form. Same with subtraction. 7 over 9 minus 2/9. Common denominator of 9 equals 5 over 9. If we don't have a common denominator, like in the following example, we can solve this in a couple of ways. Let's look at 4 over 5 plus 11 over 15. The first way and the fastest way is to find the smallest number that both of these denominators divide into equally. I see that to be 15. So this is already at 15. I have to make this one look like 15. So that would equal 4 over 5 times 3 over 3 plus 11 over 15 equals 12 over 15 plus 11 over 15 equals 23 over 15. That's simplest form. Let's look at another example. 1/2 plus 1/3. We can see we don't have a common denominator. I know the common denominator to be 6, but if I didn't know, I could just multiply 2 times 3 and get 6. So that means I just multiply the two denominators together to find the common denominator. That's a way to do it if you can't figure out what the common denominator is. So this equals 1 times 3 over 2 times 3. I have to do the same thing to top and bottom. This equals 1 times 2, and 3 times 2 equals 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6 5 over 6 simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. I have a negative 1/8 minus 1/6. Multiplying denominators together, I get a negative 1 times 6 over 8 times 6 minus 1 times 8 over 6 times 8. Gives me a negative 6. I'm going to put them over the same denominator. Minus 8 all over 48 equals negative 14 over 48 equals, I'm going to break this down. 48 and 14, both even numbers, gives me a negative 7 times 2 over 24 times 2. Cancel the 2's, gives me a negative 7 over 24 simplest form. Over 24 simplest form. So let's look at another example. We want to subtract 1 7/9 minus 11/12. Make a note that 1 7/9 is the same as 1 plus 7/9. Where say I have a 9-piece pie. I have 7 pieces left here. Here I have all 9 pieces left. That what I'm trying to say is that I have 9 out of 9 plus 7 out of 9. Altogether I have 16 slices out of 9. But the way we do that, we say 9 times 1 plus this top number. So that's going to be 9 times 1, 9 plus 7, 16 over 9. Same result, minus 11 over 12. But we don't have a common denominator. So we need to make a common denominator. So we can just multiply these two numbers together. 12 times 9. So we have to do the same to top and bottom. So 16 times 12 over 9 times 12 minus 11 times 9 over 12 times 9. So that gives me, I know 10 times 12 is 120. 6 times 12, 72. So that's going to give me 192 over 12 times 9, 108 minus 99 over 108. So I know 192 minus 100 is 92. I add 1, I get 93 over 108. I know that 9 plus 3 here, that gives me 12. So that means that since this 12 is divisible by 3, then 93 is also divisible by 3. So 93 is 31 times 3. The same is true for 108. If the sum of the digit is divisible by 3, 1 and 8, we don't count the 0. That's 9. So that's divisible by 3. So then also is 108. So 108 divided by 3 is 3 times 36. I can cancel these 3's. That equals 31 over 36. Simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. 4 plus 8 over 3. For this, we need to look at the rule that 4 times 1 equals 4. Anything times 1 is itself. 4 divided by 1 equals 4. Anything divided by 1 is itself. 1 can be broken down to a fraction of 3 over 3. We need all 3 of these rules. So let's take a look at it. So we use 4, which is just 4 times 1, if we want to look at it that way, plus 8 over 3. The 1 is now 3 over 3. So we have 4 times 3 over 3 plus 8 over 3. 4 is just like 4 over 1. So we have 4 over 1 times 3 over 3 plus 8 over 3. So that equals 12 over 3 plus 8 over 3 equals 20 over 3. That's simplest form. Let's look at combining 3 or more fractions. Take the example 5/6 minus 7/15 plus 3/10. We need to find the lowest number that each divides into evenly. Each denominator divides into evenly. It doesn't have to be the lowest number, but the lowest number that we use is going to be easiest to work with. The best way to do it is to take one of these numbers, pick maybe the toughest one to deal with, and see if you can find a multiple of it that these other two divide into. So I go 15, 30, and I see that 6 and 10 both divide evenly into 30. So I'll find a common denominator of 30. I got 5 times 5 over 6 times 5 to give me 30 minus 7 times 2 over 15 times 2 gives me 30 plus 3 times 3 over 10 times 3 to give me 30. So that equals, over the same denominator, 25 minus 14 plus 9 over 30. 25 minus 14, 11 plus 9 equals 20 over 30. When I have two multiples of 10, I can just cancel the 0. That's going to give me 2/3. Simplest form. Let's look at another example. 2 minus 25 over 6 minus 3/4. Let's look for a common denominator the way we've been doing it. So I'll go 6 times 20. So here we can find a denominator of 24, which is just 6 times 4. So I'm going to have to make 2 times 24 over 24 minus 25 times 4 over 6 times 4 minus 3 times 6 over 4 times 6. So that's the same as 2 over 1 times 24 over 24 minus 100 over 24 minus 18 over 24. Same as 48 over 24 minus 10 over 24 minus 18 over 24. So I have 48 minus 10 minus 18. I've been saying 10. That's 100. So 48 minus 100 minus 18 over 24. So 48 minus 118 over 24. 48 minus 118 is minus 70 over 24. So that equals a minus 70 is divisible by 10, which is 7 times 10. Any number with 0 in the end is divisible by 10. 24 is divisible by 2. 12 times 2, which equals negative 7 times 5 times 2. And 4 times 3 times 2. Those 2's go away, which gives me a negative 35 over 12. I don't think I can simplify that anymore. 4 times 3, 7 times 5. Nope, that's simplest form for that one. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause the video. 5 over 12 minus 3 over 8 plus 5 over 4. It's not very practical to multiply all three of these numbers together. So let's look at the multiples. Pick any one of these numbers, 12, 24. So I see 4 and 8 divide into 24 evenly. So I have 5 times 2, 12 times 2, minus 3 times 3, over 8 times 3, plus 5 times 6 here, over 4 times 6. So that gives me 10 minus 9 plus 30 over 24, which gives me 10 minus 9 is 1 plus 30 over 24, 31 over 24. Let's look at multiplying fractions. Here we don't need a common denominator, so I can take the example 5/8 times 3/2 equals 15 over 16. I can just multiply straight across. It's in simplest form. There are no common factors. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. If I take 2/3 times a negative 9 over 16. The way I like to do this, instead of multiplying this together, I want to simplify it first. I'll take 2 over 3. I know 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. 16 breaks down into 8 times 2. Since it's multiplication, I can put all of these over the same line, over and under the same line. I have 2, 3, 3. I have 3, 8, 2. I'm going to cancel 2, 2, 3, 3. I'm left with a 3 over 8. So let's look at another example. I have 3 1/5 times a negative 7/6 times 5/3. We have to change this into an improper fraction before we can multiply. So that's 5 times 3 plus 1. 16 over 5 times negative 7 over 6 times 5/3. I want to simplify this first. Since it's multiplication, I can put them all over the same denominator. So all over and all under the same line. So I have a 16 times a negative 7 times 5, all over 5 times 6 times 3. Cancel the 5s. That's going to give me 16 times a negative 7, all over 6 times 3, which equals, I'm going to break down that 16 into 8 times 2 times negative 7, and 6 is 3 times 2 times 3. So I can cancel this 2. That's going to give me a negative 56 over 9. So these have no common factors, so that'll be my answer. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause the video. I have a negative 3/2 times a negative 5 over 16 times 12 over 35. I'm going to do the same thing, but first, if I have an even number of negative signs, that becomes a positive. So now all of these are positive. I have 3 times 5. I'm going to break the 12 down into 2 times 2 times 3. I'm going to break the 16 into 4 times 2 times 2. I can break this 35 down into 7 times 5. 5 goes. These two 2's go. So I'm left with a 9 over 2 times 4 is 8 times 7, 56. No common factors, so that's in simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. I have 2 3/4 times 3 2/3. Make them into mixed numbers. That's going to give me 4 times 3, 8 plus 4 times 2, 8 plus 3, 11 over 4 times 3 times 3 plus 2, 11 over 3. 11 times 11, 121. So that's the answer. I don't think we can reduce that any further. Let's look at division of fractions. We're going to use the keep, change method. And look at the following example. 5 over 8 divided by 20 over 12. So we're going to keep this one. We're going to change the sign. We're going to change this number by flipping it, doing the reciprocal. So with keep, change, we have keep 5 over 8. Change the multiplication. 20 over 12 becomes 12 over 20. So I'm going to go 5 times 4 times 3 over 4 times 2 times 5 times 4. Just breaking each down. So I have the 5s go, these 4s go. It gives me 3 over 8. Let's look at another example. Negative 5 over 12 divided by 45 over 32. Keep, change. We have negative 5 over 12 times 32 over 45. I'm going to break this down. I'm not going to multiply these big numbers together. I'll put it all over this, all over one line, all under one line as well. I have negative 5 times 8 times 4, all over 12. I'm going to break that into 4 times 3. And 45, any number with a 5 on the end is divisible by 5. So that's just 9 times 5. I'm going to get rid of some of these 5s, these 4s. That's going to leave me with a negative 8 over 27. No common factors. This is going to be a negative 8 out. I'm going to put the negative sign out front. That's the convention, is to put the negative out front. So that's the answer, simplest form. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. I have 0 divided by a negative 33. Make a note that negative 33 is the same as negative 33 over 1. We're going to keep, change. And we also can note that 0 is just like 0 over 1. So I'm going to take 0 over 1. I'm going to change times. I have a negative 33 over 1. I've got to change that. So it's going to be 0 over 1 times 1 over 33. A negative 1 over 33. So 0 times 1 is just 0. 1 times 33 is 33. So that just equals 0. Let's look at another example. Feel free to pause video. 3/5 divided by 0. We know 0 to be 0 over 1. We're going to keep, change. So we have 3/5 times, instead of 0 over 1, we have 1 over 0. So 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 0 is 0. That is not equal to 0. That is what we call undefined. It's undefined. It's a number. If you look at it on the graph, this goes beyond this video, but if you look at it on the graph, as it goes towards 0, it goes either very big or very small. It's a really large number, so large that we can't define what it is, or it's a really small number, so small that we can't define what it is. If it's negative, it's small. If it's large, if it's positive, it's very big, positive. But it's just to remember that this is not 0, this is undefined. So anything divided by 0 is undefined. This is going to come up time and time again. So that may be something to remember going forward. So that concludes this video. If this video was helpful to you in any way, please take a moment to support the channel. Like, subscribe, share, and I want to hear from you. Please leave your questions and comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and have a nice day.